Hi, I'm Sebastian Heintz, and I'm here inside the Zenith aircraft factory. And as we can see, we've got the STOL CH 701 in the background, and then of course in the foreground we've got John Humberd with us and Calvin Heintz. And today we're going to be doing the assembly of a STOL CH 701 rear fuselage. And you know, the 701 aircraft has been out for quite a while, but the fuselage itself and the kit itself that we've been working on is really quite revolutionary in the sense we've really made it significantly easier to build and quicker to build as well. So let's jump right into it, guys, and tell us a little bit about what we're doing, and let's see how quickly this comes together.
All right. Oh.
So we have here pretty much stock kit parts, but already if you look at them in a little bit more detail, you'll kind of see these longerons are already slightly different shapes. So let's talk about what's different about these longerons, Calvin.
Well, it's very similar to what's different about the entire kit, honestly. With the 701 initially being released in 1986, I believe.
Yep, 1986.
Just production in general was a lot more crude back then, and over the years we've made small updates to the kit, but it's nowhere near the level that we can now achieve with like a full refresh. So what we've done here with this kit in general is we've gone through and we've brought everything up to a very modern standard. And that includes little things like you see on these longerons where we're able to tie things in much more directly with extremely minimal, or in many cases even saving weight, and making it easier to build.
And so basically what we're talking about too is, you know, final hole size match drilled parts themselves, correct?
Absolutely. So we haven't done any real special prep on any of this at all. Every hole and every part is there, and you're really just, well, as you can see, we're just Cleco-ing together.
Right, and we're basically using, you know, modern CNC high-speed routers to cut out the parts, pre-drill the parts, and so pretty much these parts right here are just off-the-shelf kit parts, and off the CNC high-speed router.
Yep, and in terms of the overall assembly, we're starting here with the bottom skin, adding a little bit of structure to it in the longerons, the bottom longerons, and then as we're going to be seeing with John in a moment, some of the other structure that's going to tie it all together. Right,
and that's one of the beauties of this type of construction is, you know, you have 4 flat sides, build each side flat on the workbench, and just start putting it together.
Yeah, we're going to be using 0 specialized jigging today. It's just all on a flat table. That's one of the nice things with the final hole size assembly, is it directly all ties together, and it really only fits together in one shape, so you don't have to worry about things going together crooked or twisted. It all self-corrects as you go.
All right, now John, you're already starting to work in the rear fuselage here. What are you doing back here?
I am. I'm putting, these are essentially the frames for the HT, the horizontal tail. This is really the beginning of the box frame. This is going to be a little unique from the Owen because you'll see the box assembly come together, and it's amazing how much different it is compared to the one I built.
That's right, you built yourself a 701, you know, the Super 701. A lot of you guys watching this video are familiar with that. And now you built that. Quickly tell us how long ago did you build that?
Oh gosh, you know, so mine was essentially 2 years, and I quit counting the hours when it got just ridiculous because most of mine was, you know, after hours type of build. But it is absolutely amazing the difference between the kits versus the fully CNC match drill stuff.
And one of the things you're doing here at Zenith is managing this project, making sure so you can really see those differences and appreciate those differences.
I can absolutely appreciate those differences.
Right, as a builder yourself.
We'll be able to. Yep.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because we can see, you know, in the background here, that's Roger's original 701 that he built. I believe it was 1998 is when he built it. So it's actually a pretty old airplane, but the design of the STOL CH 701 continues to be very popular for us, and part of that is just such a great little airplane. Does great STOL performance, side-by-side seating, great handling characteristics. So we really don't want to change that because it's such a great design. But at the same time, on the kit side, we can really modernize and make it easier and quicker to build. And we're not quite ready to talk about that, but this 701 that we're building, this new version of the 701, we'll be introducing a number of new features and characteristics that we haven't offered in the past. So we're really excited about that as well. And I think our builders and customers will also be once they see it and hear about it.
Yeah, one of the great things about working on a platform like this that's been around forever and is proven is that we have had plenty of time to really identify all the little things here and there that, while never a problem before, are opportunities to improve both the ease and speed of the build, as well as small improvements to the finished aircraft as well.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
So here we're just continuing to add the rest of the structure, tying directly into the bottom skin around the access panel in the bottom.
And some of these here, they're sort of sub-assemblies, I guess. You've already Cleco'd them together.
A couple things here and there. But in this case, bearing for the rear, rear of the torque tube, as well as some nylon bearings for the rudder cables. And that's something we're trying to improve on with this iteration, is really integrating the systems installation a little bit more into the airframe build, because that's one of those things where Nope. That's an area where we do have room to improve in terms of integrating it into the build of the airframe. Makes it a whole lot easier than going back to do it later on. Performing these, simple things while you have good access to the area really does save you some headaches later on.
Yeah, and I think that is an important thing to point out, because it will make it a lot quicker and easier to build ultimately for customers. You know, by incorporating that inside the airframe. And I know one of the things we'll be showing you shortly is when we're putting the skins on, is we're going to be not putting on one of the skins to allow for easier access and to make it easier for builders to put this together.
Yeah, we've really changed up a lot about the assembly procedure, kind of thinking from the ground up about what makes the build as straightforward as possible.
And of course, the entire 701 design has been put now in SolidWorks as well, hasn't it?
Yep, we do all our design digitally. Makes it realistic to achieve the level of precision that's required for batch drilling like this.
And again, even like I'd mentioned earlier, even though the basic design really hasn't changed, there's so many little things behind the scenes that we've made it quicker and easier to build. And using this 30+ years of experience, what is it, 35 years I think we're going to be, history with the STOL CH 701 design. So it's great to see that.
All right, so now we're at the point where we've got the basic structure on the bottom skin with the rear HT frames and the two rear frames here. So shortly we are going to be adding the first side skin on.
Great, great.
So we pre-assemble this just a little bit. Of course, what you'll see is everything we pre-assemble is just essentially for the quickness of the video. It's still Cleco, just a few parts that we've done just to make it easy.
So here we just have a flat skin. The same way we've got a few longeron stiffeners Cleco'd on there, right?
The longerons, yes, and stiffeners. The longerons, if you have one longeron on the skin, they make them so much easier to handle. So one person can really get these things and run with them.
Yeah, so what John's going to be doing here is lifting it to about the right spot and then just sliding it between the longeron and the other parts we've added. Now, I'm resisting helping out here just so John can show you how it's really become a pretty simple operation, really doable with one person. Now, a second set of hands can be nice, but it's absolutely no longer required as part of the build.
Yeah, we can definitely see that. That's nice. And of course, the part we saw, it was not heavy at all for John to handle, and sometimes a little bit big to handle one person, but it's definitely not a very difficult task. So here we would have normally, again, done the side skin first, Clecoed all the stiffeners and longerons on there. Now, what about riveting? Obviously here we're not going to be riveting just to demonstrate just the basic assembly. Would this section normally have been riveted at this point?
Exactly. So normally during an assembly like this, you will be, at specific stages, you will be riveting before assembling. So for example, when we were finished with the bottom skin, we would have riveted certain areas. Now there's certain things we do hold off on where parts are going to be added later. But basically, during each stage, we end up riveting some things at the end of the Clecoing. So for example, the side skin, your diagonal L angles, those uprights, to a degree those would have already been riveted in place when or before installation.
And so when would a customer know when to rivet or when not to rivet something?
So that's where our instructions come in. So while this is all really simple stuff, and with the final hole size, you can't really put it together wrong, there's certainly a sequence that makes it easy. And so one of the main components of our assembly instructions is what we call the IPL, which is effectively a step-by-step instruction walking you through every step of the process. So it's going to call out part numbers, exactly where they go. You're going to Cleco everything as it says, and then when it tells you to rivet and what to rivet, you just do that.
And when you say part numbers, now these parts, because this is a pre-production prototype sort of kit here, but individually every part has its own label and part number on there.
Exactly.
Easy to identify, isn't it?
Yeah, with everything being unique parts now that only fit in one spot, it's been it's pretty important to keep everything properly identified. So you may see it in Sharpie on some of our production test parts, but normally, yes, they have a proper label with full identifying information.
And with this new 701 kit now, because every single piece has been pre-drilled, pre-cut, so there are actually quite a few more parts in the new 701 than there used to be. Isn't that the case?
Well, you'd think that, but we've actually managed to, in terms of the overall airframe, we've actually managed to cut down on the number of parts.
Right.
Now,
but what I was referring to specifically is, the individual part numbers, because
certainly, yes, there's more part numbers, and a lot of that ties down to how with the old 701 kit, a lot of things you see here were not supplied, trimmed, drilled, ready to go. You'd be getting a big stack of unfinished L angles that you would then be positioning, trimming the ends to size, and then drilling.
So taking a lot of the labor, a lot of the measuring time, a lot of the cutting time, and things like that.
Absolutely.
We're using the CNC equipment to do that rather than the individual builder having to do that, isn't it?
Right, eliminating the parts finishing while still preserving the exact same manner of construction. So just eliminating more tools and tedious procedures from the build.
Yeah, that's great. That's great.
And what I was hinting at earlier when we were talking about the part count is while there are more part numbers, in a lot of spots we've been able to integrate what used to be multiple parts into one. For example, like Sebastian was showing you on these angles here, the corner gussets are just directly built into the angles themselves. And there's a lot of little things here and there on this fuselage where that's been implemented.
Yeah, it's really nice.
We're going to be adding a couple more L angles back here. Certain things are easier to leave off until certain stages, just like I was mentioning, but you just follow explicitly what the instructions call out, and it will keep things nice and easy for you.
Yeah, we've done this a time or two, and we're trying to find the the absolute easiest method for you guys to be able to put it together, and it's really impressive at how well this is coming together.
Yeah, and that's one of the big advantages, of course, that Zenith has been doing this for over 30 years now. Of course, Zenair did that even prior to that. So just a lot of years of experience, and then folks like John Humberd here, who's built his own 701, and so really can benefit from what we've done in the past. and share that with builders to make it easier and quicker to build.
And you may have seen us there just stumbling with getting the orientation right for a moment. And that's part of the beauty of the final hole size is it only goes one way. So if something doesn't line up, it's not in the right spot.
Right, and that's where you barely need even drawings or assembly instructions because things will only Cleco one way. Now, again, it is a lot easier to follow the instructions all the time, but the instructions don't have to be as detailed because we just have to say, take part A, put it to part B, and Cleco it together. It's oftentimes that simple, isn't it?
I've kidded a little bit. It's almost like an erector set. You're putting the pieces together, and it's not really building so much anymore as it is just putting together. It's really impressive.
Yeah. And what we get excited about that is also it allows new people that normally wouldn't be building a kit airplane, they may not have the skills or the time to do that, then all of a sudden now they would have the needed skills and the time, because you really don't need many special skills going into this.
Yeah, and this CNC stuff makes it amazing too. I think I told you I had a customer call a few days ago. He said, man, I've already cut this piece twice and it's still too short. So, we've eliminated that for you. These things fit, they either fit or they don't. If they don't fit, back up and look and see what's not working right.
Right. Yeah, that's really nice. So we've been doing this for what, 10-15 minutes, and we've obviously already have a section that looks like a fuselage now, don't we?
Getting there.
Getting boxed in quickly, yes.
As we go, we're adding additional angles and channels, tying everything together as we prepare for the baggage area.
And so this is again an area where you're now working on the baggage area, even though we don't have the top or the other side skin on, because it's just a lot easier to do it at this time, isn't it?
Correct. Yep.
Yeah, a lot of things like that. It's finding the easier and quicker and the simpler way of doing something rather than the complicated way.
Yep. The more open we can have it for certain steps, the easier it gets.
Absolutely.
Talk about this when we do.
You'll see John doing something that may look a little odd here. And so in order to provide that extra stiffness, rigidity that we need to assemble the baggage area, we're actually using an L angle to stiffen this.
Right.
And hold it in place.
Right, hold it in place, yeah.
Now that L angle is not a special part for that. It's actually one of the L angles that's going to be used on the left skin, like the other ones installed on the right. And we're just doubling up.
Yeah.
Adjusted the whole pattern to match here, so we're just using it temporarily to fix things into place. So, like I mentioned, no special jigs, but there's a couple little things that are built into the parts naturally that allow us to make things even easier.
Yeah, that makes sense. So basically we're using it as scaffolding, in other words, just holding it in place, so now you can Cleco what is this, the back of the baggage area, isn't it?
Yep.
That rear bulkhead.
Now, with the match drilled holes, sometimes it seems as though things aren't quite right, things don't quite line up. But with a structure like this, you're really pulling it into shape as it comes together. It may not be sitting exactly in the final shape. Like for example, with the bottom of our fuselage, there is actually a bit of a curve to it. And as we go along and Cleco the side skin on, that's pulling it into the shape. But as you go Clecoing the holes, it pulls together and all lines up.
Yeah, it's sure looking good doing that. And I guess, following the sequence, the proper instructions there would make a difference, wouldn't it, to do it that way?
Can. Now, with this kind of finish on the parts, there is generally a lot less variance compared to the more traditional kit construction. So even though there can be some difference based on the exact sequence you follow, it's still going to be a very consistent result.
So pretty much the only tool you guys have used at all really is just the Cleco pliers, isn't it?
Yes.
Clecos and pliers.
You can leave your drills in the drawer and just go to work with Cleco pliers.
Right, not just
really,
the drills,
really
all the
easy.
measuring equipment,
exactly.
the pilot hole size drilling, and so many different steps and procedures. And when you think about it, you know, everybody Clecos at about the same speed. Well, there are some a little bit faster than others, but where the variations will depend a lot on construction is things like measuring, drilling, and cutting. And in here, we've taken those steps pretty much completely out, haven't we? So
Yes, absolutely.
it really is to the point where a novice first-time builder really won't have any disadvantage over an experienced builder. Wouldn't you think so?
Yeah.
It's definitely a lot less accessible. Or, apologies, a lot more accessible, a lot less intimidating for the first-time builder.
Right. Because all these prior skills, again, the measuring, drilling, and things like that, you're not doing that.
Yeah,
so,
it really is. It's a game changer.
And it'll be exciting to see the types of new builders that they get attracted to that, and especially with the 701, because the 701 is such a great little entry-level airplane in the sense that it's a lightweight airplane, it's inexpensive, yet it's you know, tricycle gear, easy to fly, low landing speed.
In my opinion, you know, the Super 701 is the best airplane out there. So
right, well,
that's how I feel.
that's great to see because you know, you're an accomplished pilot now, you know, and you've won the national STOL competition with it and so forth, and you know, basically using, you know, what I call an entry-level airplane. Like, I mean, it's not a very difficult, complicated airplane, and so to see that the building part will match up with the flying part of it, I think, you know, it makes it a really great entry-level airplane. And I love to see that, you know, over the last few years, we've seen the STOL short takeoff and landing competitions become more popular. And there's been renewed interest in backcountry flying. And so it's great to see that this continues with that. And of course, the 701, even though it's been out since 1986, it's been great at doing that all along, all these years. So we put now the rear baggage floor as well in here.
Yep, circling back to our overall procedure, we've slid the rear baggage floor in, and as you probably saw, we just literally slid it in, set it on the existing angles already in place, and it Cleco'd right in. No struggle getting it aligned or anything.
Yeah, that's great to see. And with all this, again, there's no jigs or fixtures. We basically just have built everything up from the flat table.
Yep, self-correcting.
Pretty simple. And I guess one thing you do, you use a little stool in certain areas, a little ladder to get a little access a little bit higher up. But other than that, pretty simple.
Yep, just makes it a little bit easier to access sometimes. And you know, of course, it depends on the height of your workshop table and whatnot.
And this table here, that's our standard recommended table size, which is a 12-foot long by 4-foot wide table. And as you can see, we can build the entire section on this. Of course, later on, when you will be building the wings and other sections on the airplane, that the single 12 by 4-foot table, you can pretty much build everything on.
So up here, John's used another L angle to
hold another diagonal, right?
In position temporarily until we get the rest of the structure in place to support it.
Yeah, we can really start seeing now the fuselage take shape.
Yeah, we're not checking measurements on anything as we go. We know if the holes line up that everything's in the right shape.
Yeah, and that's kind of unique. I don't think we build many airplanes without the use of a tape measure, do we?
That's right.
Although at some point we might want to measure a few things.
Yep, we do that. Well, we try to do all that work for you. So when it comes down to the build, it's simple, straightforward, and you're confident that you're building a good airplane.
Absolutely.
We have another little pre-assembled. This is the seat bottom front. Very simple though. It's just a matter of
Right,
putting
so
a
it's
few
just a
L's
few,
in and
just a few parts Cleco together, isn't it?
A couple more L angles, a couple little bearing plates. Very simple. John's just going to slide it into place.
And so here we can kind of see the whole rear baggage area, and you can kind of see it's actually a pretty roomy little section here, isn't it?
there you go.
And again, just sitting in there. No Clecos yet. Everything's already in position.
And that's that whole rear baggage area. So, and then below, of course, we've got the control system that gets installed back here. So, even though it's a pretty compact little airplane, there's actually quite a bit of space in here. Now, John, you've flown your 701 quite a bit, haven't you? And not just local or competition flying, but also cross country.
Yes, I mean, I know these things weren't necessarily made to go cross country. That wasn't probably the original intention, but yes, they go, you know, I've loaded up our little electric unicycles and camping gear and all kinds of stuff going to the Arkansas and Arkansas, Florida, Oshkosh, and flown all of those. So it's a very, very capable machine.
Yeah, and that's where a little bit of extra space is nice, and then, you know, side-by-side seating is a nice feature for that. So here you're getting a few more parts ready to Cleco in position, I guess.
Exactly. There's just various little bits and pieces tying everything together. And you know, like we were talking about earlier, we're doing this in a sequence where it makes the most sense. John's installing a cover on the over the path of the push rods that operate the flaperons.
Mm-hmm.
That's really just for the video to show you kind of a more complete, because you know you would leave that off until you got all the control rods and everything in, but it gives you an idea of the actual true finish.
Great.
Here we've got the rear center spar section with the rear pickups on the wings. This is going to sit right at the top of front of the rear fuselage. Here you just got 2 channels and a couple plates Cleco together, and it's just going to sit on top of these channels, slots right into position.
And so these parts, this is the way they're supplied exactly like that, right? So they're completely pre-cut, pre-drilled. There's no filing, really nothing at all to do on this, is there?
Exactly. Now, what we have here for the test stuff, it's a little bit more messy, a little bit more scuffed up than you'd be getting out of the box.
On these particular parts?
Oh,
right.
yeah. We've had this apart together a little bit. We got little bits of Sharpie markings everywhere as we find small areas to improve. So
the beauty of prototyping, of course.
It's a fun process.
Absolutely.
When you make a batch of parts and it all fits together perfectly on the first go, it's really satisfying.
Yeah. And I remember, again, it used to be in the earlier kits, you know, you got a chunk of aluminum and some dimensions, you cut it out, file it, deburr it, and so forth. A lot more involved. So what are you guys doing back here?
Sort of the same as the side skin. We've got the top skin essentially just with the longeron on, the left longeron, to help one person really get it. Just going to set it on top, and that'll create an almost complete rear fuselage.
Wow, that is great.
With all the support structure already in place, you're basically just sliding the skin onto the top. And as we tie it in, it's going to correct the profile of the top longeron to its final shape. once again, just sliding it over and then underneath the longerons.
Yeah, it sure makes it easy. And again, everything is really self-jigging that way.
Yep. The top longeron from the back, you may have noticed that it looked a little crooked. And that's because they're not straight. They are, there is a curvature to them. And all we have to do to get that correct is as we Cleco the skin on, it's going to pull it into that final shape. So all we need to do here in order to get everything locked in is we're just going to start at the back and work our way forward.
Right, right. So self-aligning, self-jigging that way.
Yep. Just slide it about where it's supposed to go. Get that first hole lined up, which did correctly. There we are.
And now, like I mentioned earlier, most of these parts are pretty much just right off the CNC router. Now, one of the things I haven't seen you guys do either is deburring. And from observing on this, we basically don't really need to do a lot of deburring on these parts. With the CNC router, we can really control doing a nice sharp cut that minimizes the amount of burrs. Even the drilling for final hole size, we can control the plunge speeds, so really minimizing the burrs on the materials. It's 6061 T6 aluminum alloy, relatively soft, that really doesn't leave a lot of material attached. So something that you can pretty much, you know, quickly look at the part, and of course if deburring is required, you would deburr it, but I think a lot of the time it's just not required, is it now?
That's correct, yep. I mean, it's always good to go check, double check, you know, if the bit gets completely dull or something. There might be a few, but in general, they go together really nicely without much work.
And that's a big time saver as well, because even pilot hole sized parts, when you drill them out to full size, you end up leaving some burrs behind that you would have to come back and deburr. And so this, again, saves time. And like I mentioned too, this is a 6061 T6 aluminum alloy, and you know, it's a very corrosion resistant material, very flexible. And I know outside of aviation they call this corrosion proof. I know some folks may want to add additional corrosion protection if they're around a saltwater environment, but even out here, especially in the Midwest or in a dry environment, you really don't need any additional corrosion protection. Yeah, that top skin goes on quickly, doesn't it?
It does.
Sure does. And as you can see from the back, the shape has completely cleaned up as it ties the...
Absolutely, absolutely.
It ties all the structure together very directly. So now we have that nice smooth curve.
And of course, we're still missing the left skin, side skin here, but like we mentioned earlier, we're going to keep it off until we install the control systems and other the internals, and positioning it in place, literally just putting it on top and putting it Cleco again in place. It's that simple, wouldn't it?
Exactly. This being a big departure from our previous assembly sequences, simply because you didn't used to be able to do this without potentially changing the shape of your fuselage, ending up with a twist or something. But now with the guaranteed accuracy of the final hole size match drilling, we're able to just leave this open for an extended period of time, and you wouldn't be closing this up until basically all your systems are installed. With the front fuselage on as well, you'd have your control systems in. There's no working through the hole in the bottom to thread rudder cables back. None of those big hassles that can really end up costing you time in your build.
And this section here, so this is the rear, obviously the rear fuselage section. And what part do you have here, John?
This would be the seat back.
Right, so this is...
Of course, you would probably leave this off as you're putting controls and stuff in, a little further along, but we'll just do it to show you what it really looks like.
So this is actually the seat back of the aircraft. And again, like all the other parts, just Cleco them in position. And I'm gonna just quickly have a look here, show you on the finished airplane that the seat back, that's where you see the back of the actual upholstered seat, and really at the back of the behind the door section here. So we'll still have the forward fuselage section to go on, and You guys certainly did an incredible job of putting together a rear fuselage.
Well, there's really just not that much to it anymore.
Right, yeah, that's the beauty of it. And so once this section is done, what's the next stage?
So once the rear fuselage is completed to about this stage, you would set it aside and put the forward fuselage section together before joining the two and then finishing your system's installation.
And so we're not quite ready to do that yet, but what is it, next week we're hoping to be able to share that with folks as well, right?
Exactly, just ironing out a couple little kinks and looking forward to showing that one as well. That's
wonderful. Now, those of you that have been following us over the years know that we've done a one-week wonder airplane. We're basically building an entire airplane in 7 days. We did that at Oshkosh in 2014. This is going to be, we did this in a few hours. So what do you think we could do? How quickly could build an entire airplane? Obviously less than a week, no?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, as far as the actual structure goes, I mean, we're going to cut the time just dramatically down. Of course, you get into the engines, wiring, that kind of stuff. It's still a little bit of intensive, but to actually have an airplane sitting here on wheels and stuff on the ground with a structure, I think we'll cut our time.
Yeah.
Me personally, I think we'll cut our time nearly a fifth of what it was from
when I built it. Wow. Yeah, that's amazing.
Yep.
That's amazing. And like we saw, the skill set that's required to do this, again, very, very basic. Yeah, Cleco pliers.
Just Cleco pliers, yep.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Well, thank you, and we look forward to continuing to share more things about our new 701, as well as new things about the kit, but also about the new features of this new aircraft.